Hey, welcome to episode 6 of My Mental Cloud podcast, where I decided to just make a podcast. No sponsors, no marketing, anything like that, just to get things off of my chest and my head. If you decide to listen to this, great. If you don't, that's okay. Today's topic is, when do you stop learning? And in the short answer, you should never stop learning. Everything that you do should be a lesson. There should be a lesson in it, right? One of the things that we talk about a lot is our dreams. A lot of us have dreams to do things that we want to do. Like, I am a filmmaker. My dream is to make films for the rest of my life. Making films as a full-time job is one of my goals in life. Owning a studio is the big thing. Owning a studio with sound stages and places to shoot and sets and stuff like that is my end game goal, right? But I'm not willing to do whatever it takes. I'm willing to do whatever I can to make it happen. And a lot of people think that when it comes to dreams and learning opportunities, right? The one thing that I will say is that it's a mindset thing, right? So when somebody says I took an L, a lot of people think, oh, you took a loss, bro. Like, that's a negative connotation for me. And anytime you think of anything negative, your brain doesn't understand. Even if you're joking, your brain doesn't understand that. So that becomes a negative thought, and that actually changes the way that your mind thinks of things. For me, I turned my thought process into, from, I hate the word can't, right? I really hate the word can't. And my daughter will say, I can't do something. And I'm like, what do I say? She's like, can't's a bad word. Because in my family, I want everybody to think of things differently, right? So one of the things that I've done is I've started reading this book, and a lot of people have heard it. It's called Rich Dad Poor Dad. The way that I started changing my mentality was, instead of thinking I can't afford something, right? The question now becomes, how can I afford this? What can I do to be able to afford this? Because at the end of the day, if I need something or want something, how do I get it? Not saying I can't afford. Like, for instance, I want a 95-inch TV, right? Do I need a 95-inch TV? No, I don't. My 65-inch works. But if I needed a 95-inch TV, could I go out and buy one right now? The answer is yes. Now I could. If you would have asked me 6 months ago, I would have said no, unless I went and I would say no, I couldn't afford it, right? But with the way that I think now of how can I afford this, right, is a way it gets your mind thinking differently. If you sit there and say I can't do something, you put yourself in a box. If you say that how, if you ask how, you start thinking around, your mind starts to run scenarios on how you can do certain things. But the one thing that a lot of people think is once you're done with school, you're done learning, right? Which is not true. Every time I take an L, which, again, what everybody says is a loss, which is a negative word, right? I say, okay, I took an L, which an L for me is a learning opportunity. What can I learn from this said incident that will allow me to move forward from this said incident, right? What, so that next time if I'm in another situation that's similar, I remember, hey, this is what we did last, this is what happened last time, this is how we get out of it, or this is how we handle it. So you're never too old to learn anything. And also, everybody can teach you something. Don't write somebody off because they they might not be as smart as you or might not be as good as you in something that you're doing. For example, I have worked with people in the past that is really, they're really bad at what they do. Okay? And I also think about, okay, what did that person teach me, right? So one person taught me that to one person taught me this one person that was really bad taught me to take people and don't expect them to understand or learn everything or know everything that they say that they know. If they have this on their resume, expect them to be 70%. Why? Because if they are 70% efficient at what they say that they're efficient at, then I'm not distracted when they end. I'm not upset or distracted when they end up being 70%, right? Or when they end up being, if I say, hey, I need you to do this, or hey, can you go hang this light up, or hey, can you go do this, or whatever. I know that they can do it, right? Also, knowing where to place people based off of their strengths and weaknesses is obviously another thing. So, like, I like to people watch, right? So, like, a lot of times when I'm on a set, I'm quiet. I don't talk. And people think that there's something wrong because if you know me, I talk a lot. So when I'm on set and I'm looking at people and I'm watching what they're doing, it's like I'm really just casing the place, trying to figure out where I can use people for the best situations, right? A lot of people don't understand that, and it's a mindset thing too. And I think that a lot of it comes from risk, right? We grow up in a society where we go to school for 12 years and we are negatively punished for a mistake. Life has a lot of mistakes. And the thing is, though, instead of learning from said mistake, we take that mistake as a negative thing and it messes with our head, right? One of my favorite things to talk about is test taking. Because I know a lot of people will take tests and they do horrible, right? But they still know the information. Like they can talk themselves through doing something, but if you tell them on to write it down on paper, they can't do it. I know people that are the opposite direction, right? You could say, hey, I need you to map this out on a piece of paper, and they'll map it out perfectly fine. But then when you tell them without that piece of paper, they don't know what to do. I think a lot of our issues when it comes to the way that we think and the way that we're processed starts with school. I think test taking is the worst thing we could do, especially if it's just pen and paper or on a computer, stuff like that. Learning is you're never too old to learn. And that's a saying that a lot of people say and a lot of people hate, but you're actually never too old to learn something new. I take L's all the time. Learning opportunities, right? One of my biggest L's recently was I did a contract with my one of my flips, because I flip houses and do real estate as well, and I agreed to a 10% return on my investment. Originally, what I had thought was it's 10% return from the profit. And they said, no, this is a return on investment. So one of the biggest things I've learned is pay attention to what you're doing. So after I got out of that and I got my money, my father and I started doing some investing work. And now I make 20% on my investment constantly. And I know how much I'm going to make. And why do I do 20%? Because it's more money. But at the same time, they say it's better for them if I only take 20% on my investment than take 10% on a profit, because the profit could be $10,000 versus the whatever 20% is that I have invested. So when it comes to learning, I think that once you stop learning is when you get in trouble. Right? When you think that you're the smartest person in the room and you know everything, and that's when humility goes out of the room and you really just a one-trick pony, right? And I believe in today's society, you cannot be a one-trick pony. They actually say that most millionaires have at least seven streams of income. Most millionaires that are millionaires on their own have 7 streams of income. And then most billionaires have even more than that. So learning is always a thing that I like to do. And that's one of the reasons why I am so glad that I decided to do this master's degree program, because I've learned so much. So I'm doing a master's degree program. I'm pretty sure I said this on the podcast before. It's a master's of liberal studies, and it's basically, the master's of liberal studies part is basically the study of people, right? I've taken arts courses and humanities courses. I'm taking one right now that's generational differences in the workplace. What I've learned is, with that class specifically, is why I think the way that I think. Baby boomers came up, work hard, start from the bottom, go up with your bootstraps, right? Xers are the original Lockheed kids, and they would like to spend a little bit more time with the family, but they still have loyalty towards a company. Millennials, which we are, right? Pretty much, we want, because of our Lockheed family members or our boomer parents, right? We want to, when we have kids, be around. So we need the flexibility, and then on top of that, we grew up with technology as technology is growing. Because I had a cell phone before I graduated high school. Now, it was a Nokia, and a lot of people don't know what that is, where the only thing we had was calling and texting and the game called Snake. Um, and I watched the evolution of cell phones, pretty much affordable cell phones, like if you weren't rich. I watched the evolution growing up. That also being said, Generation Z is growing up with a computer in their hand from the very beginning, right? My kids, well, one of them is a Generation Z. The other one would be whatever the next generation is going to be called. But my kid, my oldest kid is a Generation Z, and she has had an iPad in her hand since she was 2, and she knows how to navigate. And she knows how to navigate her iPad really well. She knows how to control my TV. She knows how to do everything technology-wise because she grew up that way. Now, a lot of people say that screen time and this, that, and the other is probably never a good thing for students and kids and stuff like that. But the thing is, though, a lot of these people that are making these observations, a lot of them grew up without technology, and so they're basically comparing what is happening in the past to people now. For example, a lot of people say that screen time leads to obesity. They should be outside playing. Well, my kid gets screen time pretty much all the time, but the moment she tells me she doesn't want to go outside is when we have an issue. My daughter would rather spend more time outside than on an iPad or whatever, right? And she makes that choice for herself. I don't have to limit how much time she spends on her iPad. I use her iPad also to get her away from me when I need to handle some things that need to be done. And I need them to chill out. My youngest is starting to understand how a phone works and how to FaceTime people and stuff like that. Learning is what we're supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to do. The moment you stop learning, like I said, you've lost. I always try to look for learning opportunities in everything I do, which brings us to another thing, right? If we're talking dreams, right, which this conversation is kind of moving over towards that dream section. Dreams to me are very important. Everybody, I think, in life should have a dream. My dream is to own a full-on film studio, doing things like that. Also, part of my dream is being able to own multiple businesses and even just being silent partners, but having money in multiple businesses and trusting people and really investing in people that I believe in. Like one of my cousins is he's very big into marketing right now, and he doesn't need anybody invested right now. But once he wants to expand, then I'm there. I told him once he's ready to expand, I'm ready to start throwing money. But he's got to have the portfolio ready. He's got to have the pitch ready and everything like that. So my dream is really far off in La La Land right now, and I like to put my dream on a roadmap, right? So from exit 1, where we start, to exit 100, where my goal is, I'm going to be getting off at multiple exits. And I already have, because to be honest with you, this has been my dream and my goal since I was in college. And I think I started my dream and goal and stuff like that a few years before, because I used to shoot music videos and shoot videos of us playing basketball because I was really big into AN1 mixtapes and stuff like that. I used to really start doing like those type of videos and stuff when I was younger, before I went to college. I went to college for film school, and that's where I learned all my fundamentals. And then after that, I graduated and started learning more. But the one thing they didn't teach us was business. So I had to start learning how to look at business from a different perspective as well. I've done a lot of things from learning, right? I've done a lot of things. I'm always learning. One thing that really stuck out to me was learning this whole mindset situation. I don't know if I talked about it earlier in this podcast. Now I'm at 15 minutes. But the whole idea of saying I can't, right? The negative idea of that, right? So one thing that I've learned is that when you say something negative, your body reacts to it. Your body doesn't understand any jokes either. So if you say something negative, and even if it's in a joking manner, your body reacts to it. And it doesn't understand sarcasm. It doesn't understand jokes. It doesn't understand any of that. So when I sit there and I say I can't afford something, right? My mind automatically goes, that's not possible. So I've done this thing where I've changed the way that I think. And what I have learned is that that type of thought process really changes your perspective on life, right? I don't sit there and say I can't anymore. I say, how can I? So it makes me think, okay, it's not saying that I can't get that. It's not saying that I can't achieve that. It's saying, what do I have to do? Now my mind starts thinking, okay, what things can I do to get there, right? My mind starts making goals. And the thing about it is goals is very important because another thing that I've heard, especially on the YouTube channel, I like to listen to a lot of people that are successful and even people that aren't successful, but they're working towards it. And you could tell that you could see that they've actually grown and done things like that is this guy's sitting there talking and he says, you have a dream. Your dream is so far away from you that all you're looking at is that, right? You don't pay attention to anything else besides that dream, and you're going towards that dream. And every single time you take a step, it looks like it takes a step back, it takes a step further. Because what you don't understand is it's not a point A to point B, like I said. So we're talking about the dream thing again, and we're back on the highway situation, right? So for point A to point B is a straight line. Every time you take a step, if you see that dream get further back, right? It's because you're not going anywhere on that road. You're off on an exit. You don't even realize it. Every time you have an obstacle, it is an exit. You will never get to a dream going in a straight line because there's things that are supposed to teach you things, right? For example, going to film school was important to me because I learned the fundamentals of filmmaking and stuff like that. And then it also, for me, put a passion for storytelling. Before, I just was making videos because it was fun, right? I didn't really have a passion. If I wasn't in the mood to do it, I wasn't going to do it. But when I went to film school, telling stories, the way that I tell stories, right, became a passion to the point where I had multiple times where I wanted to quit. But I would find myself not even like thinking about it, but I'm watching videos on filmmaking and storytelling. I'm writing and I'm watching things and stuff like that. And it's like, I can't really get my mind off of it. So film school created the passion for me. And then it also gave me the fundamentals of filmmaking and the knowledge that I needed to know to at least start moving towards my dream. But he said, we're so busy looking at dreams that we don't even realize that the goals are more important. So I started looking at my past decisions. I would buy, sell, trade, whatever, to get upgrade, right? I was very big on upgrading cameras. I was a very, very big camera nerd and a gear nerd, but I really only cared about cameras because I wanted to be a cinematographer. I didn't want to do anything else, but I had other skills in other places. And then I realized when I started investing into houses that I really want to be a producer as well. I want to run a business. I want to make money doing things that I want to do. And I don't want to be a project-to-project artist. I want to be able to greenlight artist. I want to be able to pick and choose what projects I work on and not have to worry about is the money coming in because we're working on other projects at the same time. My goal is to be a studio exec of my own studio, whether that be with a partner, which originally was not even a option until recently when somebody said they wanted to partner up. It wasn't even an option. It was, I wanted to be the next Tyler Perry. I want to own everything, but nobody does everything alone, right? Tyler Perry might own everything and everything might be his, but he has partners involved, whether that be investors or And even if it's not investors that are ownership of the company, it's investors that invested in him and they got their money back. It was like a borrowed thing, right? He is the epitome, his studio company is the epitome of what I want, right? I would love to have a 333 acres, but I'm okay with the 11 acres that he had originally, right? My dream is to have a studio company to where I can make my own stuff and make money off of it. But I could also rent out my locations to other people, and I could also shoot stuff that other people's written, stuff like that. I want to have a writer's room, and I want to have web series going on constantly and have different shows. I want to basically be a network. But you never get anywhere without learning, and you never get anywhere without goals. So he said, if you focus on the goals, the dream will be closer than you think. Meaning that if I keep constantly focusing on just the goals and stop looking at the dream itself, right? Obviously, I have to look at the dream to make sure that I'm going in the right direction. I have to remember my dream. But if I focus on the goals to get to that dream that I laid out, then the journey's not going to be so bad. One of the things, this is the goal that I just recently accomplished. I have a lot of film gear from purchases back in the day. I bought cameras, stuff like that. Like I told you, I traded up and all that type of stuff. I've lost a lot of money doing that, and I'm not afraid to admit it. One of the biggest things was when I purchased my Red, I realized that Red and Arri were one of the two cameras that I wanted, right? Either I got a Red or I got an Arri, and that was it. And I thought that with me getting the Red and Arri that I would never have to worry about. I never thought that, I would never thought that I would have the contentment of cameras. Once I got my Red Komodo and I knew that I had a Red, I didn't look at cameras anymore the way that I used to. I believe that that was a goal for me. And now that I got that goal, now I'm not as heavy on I gotta have the camera thing. Now I'm upgrading my lighting. So I upgraded my lighting over the past few months. I have all this gear now, and I'm able to shoot films, and I'm pretty much to the point where I have everything I need to make a feature film, and I don't have to rent anything for the most part, maybe like a 12K at this point. But at some point, that is a goal to have a couple 12Ks to simulate daylight whenever I need to. But at this point, it's not important. The best goal, the goal that I've gotten so far, the next step that I've gotten, which is the highest step at this moment, is I actually own a trailer, an enclosed trailer, that houses all my gear, and I could take my gear to different sets and do things like that. And now it's like, one of the biggest things was, I have so much gear in my house, I don't know where all of it is. And then I also forget gear when I go on sets, right? How can I eliminate that? Well, buy a trailer, right? Instead of looking for a building to put all my stuff in, buy a trailer, enclosed trailer, lock it up, obviously. You don't want people stealing your stuff, but then you could also take that to set with you anywhere. You don't have to worry about, is this going to work? Am I in the right place? Because you're there and you know what you're doing. So with that being said, my first step is complete, right? And a lot of times you can say that my first step was complete with my bachelor's degree in film. My second step is the trailer. My third step is going to be my master's degree. And then my fourth step will be potentially partnering up and starting to move forward in the right direction as far as like getting a lot of things going. That being said, if you focus on the small goals and you get those goals accomplished and you can check those off, you're closer and closer to your goal. The moment you look up, you'll be at exit 75 realizing that, oh crap, I'm only 25 exits away from my dream. And right now I would say that once I get my master's degree, I might be at exit 30, 40. You know, it still takes time to do what you got to do because you're still going to learn things. And everything that you do and everything that God puts you through is so that you can learn something. And I know I just went religious on you, but I do believe in God, and that's something that I never will not believe in. Even if I don't go to church, I believe in God, and I believe in that He never puts you in situations that you can't handle, or He doesn't put you in situations that you cannot understand or learn from. And that's one of the problems I think that a lot of us people have, is that we don't understand that when we go through things, it's for us to learn, right? It's not necessarily for us to be in a negative situation and then not be able to handle it. It's really to teach us. It teaches us a lesson. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, why I have to go through this, blah, blah, blah. Like, you learn what you need to learn in order to do what you need to do. And I also believe that you should pray about the things that you really want to have in life. And I believe that in doing so, He's going to teach you the things you need to know. For instance, an example, again, I'm in real estate. Learning how to make money instead of just sitting in the bank and saving money over time. Understanding that if I want more money, I have to invest it in something, because in order to make money, like, money sitting in the bank is wasted time and wasted money. So invest it in something that will give you more money in a shorter period of time. My thing is flips. We flip a house, we put 20, 30 grand into a house, we profit 30, 40 grand. And then my initial investment of 10 grand could end up being, now for the next flip, I have $15,000 or $20,000. So right now, and I'll be, for example, I'll give you my exact numbers. Right now, I started out, because you don't have to have a lot of money to start out. You just got to have the know-how or the people that want to do it, or you could do it yourself. I started out with a $5,000 investment. I received $1,500 for my first flip, and then I was on deployment. So I'm sitting at $6,500 right now invested. And then I went on another humanitarian deployment, and I was able to put another $3,500 in with it. So now I'm sitting at 10 grand in investments. If I would have taken my 5 grand and my 3,500 and put it together, I would have $8,500, right? So $1,500. I received $1,500 in less than a year, right? You're not going to get that money with the money sitting in the bank. Investing in something that you're doing and figuring out how to make your money make money is something that you can learn, right? So I'm over here trying to figure out why I'm not making money. And to be honest with you, it took a long time. It was like 8-9 months for the first flip to go through and finish, which was very devastating to me. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, I could have made more money over this. And I'm looking at it like, oh, I could go ahead and buy another Komodo with this money and then rent that Komodo out and make that money back and this and the other. But at the same time, I'm reading and hearing people that are talking about renting out their cameras and saying that their SDI ports were burnt out because people don't know and this, that, and the other. And it's like, okay, well, if I want to do a camera rental, maybe I should buy Blackmagics instead. Blackmagic or some minis instead, and do rentals that way. Because it's harder to justify doing something like that when you have cameras and stuff like that. But like at the same time, it's like I've also learned patience. Jumping on the next thing because you're trying to figure out how to make more money fast doesn't necessarily work out. Like me, I'm invested in my father and myself, right? I'm invested in the idea that my dad has been trying to do this for the past 20, 30 years, but having family, he had to sacrifice, which is another topic we'll talk about later. Being a family man and the idea of sacrificing to get what you want. My dad has been my biggest inspiration for the last 12 years, 10 years. Before, I just didn't see it, I didn't understand. My father has always been one of those people that has been very entrepreneur. And there was times where I'm like, hey, why don't you just sell this and break even and be done with it, because I see it gave him headaches, right? But at the same time, I'm one of those people too that have learned that this is what he's been trying to do, and I understand now, right? And I learned what he was trying to do, and I understand. I was like, okay, he's been doing this for a long time. And I think when you get older, you start to appreciate and you start understanding things more than what you see, right? What's right in front of your face. Face value kind of goes away when you get older, you know. And a lot of people, there's some people that do get older younger, which is great. And I say older as in a mindset, right? Learning that you can learn things from everybody. Being a good person. I think if you understand that you can learn from everybody, creates humility, but also makes you an easier person to get along with and an easier person to work with. But then on top of that, I think that if you are constantly learning, you never you never have to worry about the idea of not knowing, right? But then you also need to know that if you don't know something, you need to learn. For instance, one of the things that I find very interesting is the job of the director. Christopher Nolan is arguably one of the greatest directors in the history of filmmaking. Um, I, I can agree with that. Do I believe it? Yeah, I'll say I believe it. My favorite is Zack Snyder, but we'll move on from there. And then, actually, no, my two favorites, I have them all equal, is Ryan Coogler and then Snyder for two different reasons, right? It's not for the same thing. But they are equal for me as far as best directors, in my opinion. But the one thing that Christopher Nolan said was the job of the director is to be knowledgeable in everything that goes into making a film, not to the point of perfection or greatness, but enough to be dangerous. Meaning, if I'm directing something and I'm like, okay, well, I know in visual effects we can do this, and this is whatever, or I know that I want this type of shot. Understanding cinematic language, I know understanding how to edit and understanding all that type of stuff. You might not necessarily be the person that's sitting there editing, but you understand and think about, okay, how is this going to edit in post? Because if you know that stuff and you know at least a little bit to be dangerous, your creativity can skyrocket. And all you really need to do is one, know your story inside out and understand what people's jobs are and trust that they know what they're doing. Other than that, I just got to know enough to be dangerous. I don't need to know what lens to put on somebody's thing. I need to say, hey, I know we can do this, but I want to elongate the face or whatever, blah, blah. And they say, okay, well, cool. Well, we're going to do this. Boom. And then if it looks good, good. If it's not, okay, what can we change this to fix this, right? But learning is the most important aspect, I think, of life. Because if you can't take an L as a learning opportunity and you take it as a loss, like think about it this way. I think that a lot of sports players, the reason why they have bad careers is because they can't get over a mistake, a fumble. They're afraid that they're going to fumble again. But if you let it go and you move on and you learn from that mistake, okay, so when I catch the ball, make sure I clutch it with two hands because somebody can rip from my right hand because my right hand's not as strong as my left. Or my left hand's not as strong as my right. Let me go ahead and brace it with my right. Now I got both hands on the ball. It's not coming out. So there's that. Or one of the biggest things for me is if I miss a jump shot when I was younger, if I miss a jump shot in the game, it'd be 5-10 minutes before I take another jump shot. But then you look at people like Kobe Bryant and Russell Westbrook, especially Russell Westbrook. It's like if he takes a shot, by the time he's back on defense, he forgot that he airballed. He's taking the shot again in the next sequence. Same thing with Michael Jordan. Same thing with Kobe Bryant. Same thing with all the great players. If they mess up, they don't give up. They forget about it and they go to the next play as if it never happened. And that's a learning opportunity, right? You learned that it doesn't matter at that point, right? You got to score. You got to do whatever. Blah, blah, let it go. And then you could tell the greats, right? Kobe Bryant airballed like the first first three shots he took as an NBA player. But he ends up having one of the greatest careers of all time. Yeah, so learning is very important. One thing that I've learned recently, other than going after my goals one step at a time, is that people are very different. It doesn't matter if you are raised in the same home. It doesn't matter if you're twins. You guys are going to be different. I have friends that are twins, and they are completely different. And another thing is when we're talking about learning things, right? Learning how to be a father is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. because every situation that you get put in is different. At one point, I'm like, oh, this is easy. Then you add another kid. Now it's like, wait, now how do I? So for me, one of the hardest things to do was understand that it doesn't matter how many kids I have. You have to love them all the same, right? When I found out we were having a second kid, I put so much effort into my first that I was like, how can I love another kid as much as I love this one? It's not going to be the same. Which every father, every person that has multiple kids have told me, it's not the same. It's a different concept. It's a different feeling, but you love them the same. It's not like your love is 100% and you have to split it between kids, right? You get 25%. When you have 4, you get 25% of my love, blah, blah, blah. No, everybody gets 100% of your love. Love is not like, it's not contained, right? So when I learned that and I understand, like, okay, things are different. My oldest acts differently and I have to treat her differently because she's older and she understands things and she's learning and she's growing and she's got a more developed mindset right now. So one of the things I've been trying to teach her is I don't raise lazy kids. So when she asks me to do something that she's fully capable of doing, I just say, hey, what kind of kids am I doing? Especially if I'm busy with something. Well, my youngest isn't quite at that level yet, so I have to be different with her than my oldest. And it's not that I love the youngest more than I love the oldest. It's that they're two completely different people. And they're in two different mindsets because one is older than the other by like 2.5 years. And the other one is still developing even just the ability to talk and tell me how to use her words. She's not even at that point now where she can tell me what she wants. Now she's doing it, but without using words. She's pointing at things, she's grunting, she's making faces, she's saying no, she's shaking her head yes. She's doing all the things that I can tell that she's growing and she is learning, right? But she's in a different mindset. So I treat them differently, but I don't love them differently. And it was hard. It's a learning opportunity. Like, again, I did not understand how that was until I actually was put in a situation and I have my mentors. So if you don't learn anything from this podcast, if you don't take anything away, even if you're still here, because we are at 37 minutes, the one thing I will tell you is that if you change your mindset and continue to learn, right? Take the negativity out of the way that you think and continue to learn. I think that your life will be positively impacted a lot more than you're used to. And if you're already doing that, just keep continuing to do it. I really want to be the best person I can be. I really want to hit my goals. I really want to make sure that when I'm going for my dream, that I'm hitting all my goals and that I'm learning from it. Anytime that I take a chance, I want to do that. And you know what? There's going to be a part 2 that I'm about to start right now. So